Okay.
We are official.
Mhm.
So it is my great pleasure to introduce the wonderful Shirley Riga. Woo! So I'm gonna jump straight into our first question. And what does self-care mean to you?
Oh, self-care is so important, and everyone has a different definition for it. To me, it's remembering me in my life, and I create things I do, actions I do that comfort me, that bring me into the present, that allow me to remember that there's me in here despite everything going on in my life, in my personal life, in my career life, in the chaotic world. Um, so specifically, what I have been doing is when I feel overwhelmed, it's because I'm probably looking ahead, probably thinking about what's happening in the world or to a family member, or, there's a lot of stuff happening. If I bring myself back to the present moment, and it can take 2 seconds, I touch the end of my nose, brings me present. I only know what's happening at the end of my nose, and I come back into my body. I am here now. This is what I'm doing now. And it always energizes me to feel more present, always. Looking at my feet, breathing, doing grounding, anything like that to bring me presence is a present, so that I have presence within the now, um, is helpful to me. That's one of many, many things I do.
Ooh, I absolutely adore it, and I am stealing
Oh, good,
it.
good, good, good.
Yeah, exactly. And my little 4-year-old, she's been doing a lot of the, like absorbing the Reiki and sort
Mm,
of my conscious speech around like the NLP and things. And that is so accessible. She can do that. She's going to
absolutely.
love
And
it.
nobody needs to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
No one needs to know what you're doing. That's the beauty of it for me when I'm, dealing with whatever. So, yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's
beautiful.
between me and me. Yeah.
Me, myself, and I.
Yep, got it.
Oh, and what is your favorite piece of self-care that you do?
Well, it's changed over time. Probably the most helpful thing I do that takes longer than 2 seconds is sitting with myself in silence. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, most often it's 15 minutes, where there's nothing. I'm choosing not to do anything but to sit in silence. My mind may be going crazy, but I'm choosing not to engage. So I just kind of watch it. Thank you for sharing. Yep, yep. Glad you're there. Nope, just sitting. And it was very hard to do, but sitting in silence for me, and I have witnessed it hundreds of times at this point with the meditation work I do, is that it becomes more, my higher self becomes, it almost emerges, so that I witness me witnessing me in silence. And it's an incredible experience. And I've had other people tell me that when they're crying because they are so sad or something, that they realize that there's a presence there, that this calm, quiet, solid, steadfast presence, that's their higher self with them. It's an incredible gift. And it has come from me spending time with myself. And people say, I can't do that, and that's fine. There are ways to do that so that you can build up to it. And I started with guided meditation, 4 minute, so that I was sitting with myself without engaging my mind. I listened to a comforting thing, and it has been extremely successful. So I people get afraid of being with themselves, for what they're going to hear, for what they're going to feel. And it's always worse in the worry than it is in the reality, always. And oftentimes it's really helpful to get the feelings out. There's some times that I sit in silence and I need to cry. And then I can be with myself because I've gotten it out instead of fighting it. So long answer for my most favorite.
Oh, but it's perfect. It's a perfect answer. And I love that you mentioned how you began was by taking those 4-minute guided meditations. Is that what the starting point you'd suggest for somebody who's really new to self-care? Is that where you'd have them start?
Absolutely, because the first knee-jerk reaction for anyone is, I can't do that. And the door's closed. And so I encourage people to just think about it, because we could start with a minute. A minute out of a 24-hour day is nothing. And there are, I think I used Insight Timer, and I know that there's lots of apps on the phone with guided meditations, or even music if people prefer that. But it is creating like a cocoon just for me. And even though my mind is going, I can't do this and stuff, I listen to a guided meditation and take a breath and blow out and be aware of, whatever that it's saying, be aware of the air coming out of your nostrils, or be aware of the air moving in your lungs or something. They are out there and they're short, and start that much and congratulate yourself for doing it and move on. And then the next day, do it again. And you're cultivating a habit of self-care, but it's cultivating it for myself, which is I'm worth the time. And that's part of the process, is believing that we're worth the time and effort to spend a moment with yourself. So I absolutely advocate for that. And I am not a believer that you have to do meditation a certain way at all. And because that thwarts people too, by thinking that they can't do it, for whatever reason. And they just have to design it in a way that works for them so that they stay steady with themselves. So.
Yeah, it's so true. We're all worthy of spending the time.
And I had to work on believing that for many, many months and years, probably. So.
Yeah, just like me.
It's an effort. It does take work. It does take work, but we are worth it.
Yeah. And it's like you said, it's so worth persevering.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But people come against their ego voices that are screaming, no, I can't do this, is going to destroy me, all these things. And it won't. And I let the ego scream. Sometimes I write in a journal everything that the ego is saying with big letters, just to get it out, because it'll still be there, surprised that they survived.
Oh, yeah. And I love that you've mentioned journaling. So, how do you approach your journaling? Do you, obviously, you say sometimes you're writing what the ego is saying, and it's really big letters and it's loud, and you're just, just getting it out. Are
Yeah.
there other ways that you approach your journaling also?
Well, I think the biggest way to approach it is not to have expectations of what one thinks they have to do in order to be a successful journaler, because throw that out, throw it out. I worked with a woman who could not journal. She kept talking herself out of journaling. And so I suggested that she just get an empty page and write one word on it. One word, start there, one word, one day. And so she wrote the most expletive, nasty word you can imagine in big letters. Perfect. Okay, let's move to the next day. And because journaling is not to create something that you're going to show somebody. Journaling is a way to vent. It's a way to vent personally with a journal, with something that my eyes can see that I am expressing something. And it's surprising what comes out. And so just start in a little tiny step and make sure it's private. Make sure that, it's not left around, and make sure that there's boundaries, healthy boundaries around the fact that you have a journal, and you respect it. And, it becomes a friend. And I started journaling when a therapist told me that I should journal because I was dealing with my chronically ill daughter and losing my mind of worry when so many years ago, and I had another daughter and everything was falling apart. And the thought of journaling was like, I'll just cry through the whole thing, or I'll just scream through the whole thing. And I don't know how many journals I created, but I found that it helped me not feel so alone. So.
Yeah, I think a journal can be, it's you, but on paper. So it's kind of you, but out in the world. You're taking up that extra space, I feel sometimes.
Yeah. And it makes me think about, as a Feel the Fear trainer, I teach people to be aware of their self-talk, of how they talk to themselves. And most people are degrading to themselves and insulting and insistent and criticizing and judgmental. And that's what's going on inside. And it really makes it apparent when they journal of what they think of themselves. And it's a great opportunity to realize I don't have to talk to myself like this anymore. It's much easier to be pleasant, and I do a lot of exercises with people about that awareness. And it is a great, great way to start getting to know our insides, because the whole purpose is to become our friend, not our enemy. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's really interesting, to speak about what's coming up in the self-care. So especially in the journaling and things. And it's enabling people also to know that whatever comes up for them is perfect and we
Right.
don't have to judge.
Right.
Yeah.
And we don't have to report into somebody because I wrote this in my journal today. What do you think? That's not helpful to somebody at all. It's learning healthy boundaries and exploring within ourselves. And if we don't know what we think, we write about the fact that we don't know what we think, and kind of tire out that questioning voice until other things come in. It's a great way to explore on the inside. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, from what we learn about what's on the inside in our self care time, in our journaling, with what comes up in our meditations, do you think it's important for people to then have a support network for anything that does arise so that if we do get to reach out for support, we have that platform there for us?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important. A lot of times, and I have done this myself, is I depend on my friends, I depend on my family for my emotional care, which is kind of a setup and a crash and burn type of situation, as I've learned. And so it's healthy boundaries are really important. And you know, there are people out there that help be a companion to somebody without having to go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. You can have somebody who's a counselor that is there to be the listener as somebody explores themselves. And and I am a practicing spiritual director. That's part of my job, is to be a listener so that people can explore what they're saying, say it out loud. And, if they feel they need guidance, I'm there, but I'm really the presence of a spiritual listener, or somebody who can hold the space and guide in a direction, but not give the direct answers to, because those come from people. So it's a very profound relationship to have that type of give and take with somebody. So it's good. And the from my understanding, and I belong to Spiritual Directors International, that both women and men are being trained to be spiritual directors for that very reason, because of everything that's happening in this world. We need to companion with people so we don't feel alone. And we need to do it in a safe, healthy boundary way. And so that we increase um, our self empowerment for ourselves, instead of giving it to somebody else. So it is a good movement that's happening. And
Yeah.
not just with spiritual directors, but with others like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think for me that's been this biggest silver lining in everything that's happened, all the chaos, over the last year or so, is that people are supporting others to empower themselves to be
Right.
themselves.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. To find out what it is that you're feeling, what it is that you want or don't want, and what it is that can support you to be all that you dream of, or even just find peace of mind while you're figuring out your dream. We all have that right. So it's wonderful.
Yeah. So I love that part of your work. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
it is. It is an incredible part of my work, and it's satisfies me very deeply. So,
Yay. Oh, and actually, so that satisfies you, on that spiritual and that heartfelt level. And what other things do you do to celebrate your wins, your own like joyful experiences?
well, I've gotten into flowers this year. I've never really, excuse me, appreciated the beauty of flowers. People give me flowers, or a pot that's a flowering plant, and usually I kill it because I don't know how to take care of it. But I have made, and I've been trying to figure out why this year is so successful, and it's almost like I'm more comfortable with myself, so that I'm more present and taking care of me, so that I can kind of be present for other things around me. So I am playing in dirt. I am, I buy the little seedlings that have already started, and I repot them into a plant, into a pot, and I have them around the table that I eat at outside, and it is just so beautiful. I also, what else do I do? Well, through COVID, I became very um, intent on being creative, so that I could use my hands, use my focus, and create something, losing my awareness of the time, because it was such a strange and challenging time. And so I started doing some arts and crafts things, and people were like, wow, I like those. Can you make me one? So that kind of took off. And I just do things for my physical body, to enhance the way my organs work. Um, I do a practice using, what's it called? Touch for Health. It's based on a book of running my meridians, because, Chinese medicine that's been around for thousands of years believes in the energy meridians of the body that help the organs work, help everything work, and they run in a certain direction. And so I have learned how to trace my meridians on my body from, here and there. And it's a routine that I do now, because I made the effort to learn it. And as I'm doing it, I am enhancing the energy in my body to be the best that I can be. And so sometimes I forget to do it. Other days I'm remembering days in a row, and then I forget, and then I come back to it. And so it's a process. I don't beat myself up about it. I just think, oh yeah, geez, I haven't done that in a while. So yeah.
Ooh, I love it. I'm inspired. I'm going to look at that. Yeah. I remember looking at the meridians like, oh my gosh, years ago when I very first had like massages and things.
Right. And acupuncture,
Um,
use them all the time. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I get
I can
to.
get you I can get you the name of the book. I don't have it on me, but it is very much about treating the body, treating the energy body as well as the physical body. So,
Ooh, yeah, that's perfect. Sounds like it would tie in beautifully with the Reiki.
oh yes, absolutely.
Oh, and so a final question. On day to day, do you find that you kind of consciously or subconsciously check in with yourself emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, or does it vary on a day to day?
Wow. Well, it's a process that has grown over time because I have been meditating now on a daily basis for a year and a half. And so there were times before that when I was not aware spiritually of what I was sensing. I was at the mercy of emotions just kind of coming at me without knowing where they came from. And I was at the mercy of reactions of things I hear, see, read, things like that. And using mindfulness, I've become much more aware of what I'm sensing because I'm a very sensitive. I practice as a psychic medium, so I'm very, very sensitive to everything. And so I'm understanding more closely um, what I'm picking up and not saying, oh, I'm nuts, or I'm such, I can so easily label it like I used to do instead of understanding what's happening. And so I'm making efforts to learn that more and more closely as I work with mentors that help me and practicing awareness. And I'm very aware of my physical body because I am doing energy exercises with both because I have to use my physical body to do energy body work. And so I find that my biggest challenge is when I am watching a TV movie and the scene comes on that's triggering and brings me right back to the loss of my daughter that happened 6 years ago or something like that. And that actually happened last night. And it was like, wait a minute, where did this come from? Boom, I'm slammed. I can very easily beat myself up. Why can't I be present for a movie? The words start going. And why can't I just sit there like a normal person and watch a movie? I'm very familiar with these words because I've heard them so many times. And essentially what's happened is I have been emotionally triggered by a traumatic event, which was the loss of my daughter after 32 years of fighting a chronic liver disease. And instead of beating myself up, I turn to the word gentle and gentle myself. I need to just comfort myself because it's pain that's come up. And instead of, labeling myself as bad and putting myself in a prison inside, and you can't feel this feeling, and you can never watch TV again, and all these things, I take the time to care for myself because what I'm feeling is real pain. It's a grief, and then I get through it and move on. And so I'm very aware. And I think it's really hard not to be aware nowadays with everything that the world has just lived through because we were jarred into awareness and everyone's learning something and they may choose to ignore it, but something will happen again where they are jarred into awareness. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, beautifully, as
Oh, thank
always.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a pleasure, and you're so open and honest and authentic and vulnerable. And thank you so much for all of that sharing.
You're very welcome. Um, People are so hungry to be around real, real words, real thoughts, real feelings, instead of what looks good and what sounds good. And I am 150% committed to that. And it helps me be happy and it helps other people grow. So that's my commitment.
Yeah. And it's how we support, isn't it? Through all the different experience that we've each individually had,
Absolutely.
the reason is to be able to support and lift others up so that their journey can be that little bit easier.
Absolutely. Because no matter what catastrophe happens, there's something we learn from it. It may not be right away, it may be months later, but there is something. And no doubt somebody else will go through something just as catastrophizing. And a helping hand is always helpful. So,
Thank you. And was there anything that you would like to share with the audience?
well, I have a pretty dynamic website, shirleyriga.com, and I offer free videos of information that can be helpful for people who are dealing with stress and anxiety. There's a free handout on there that gives 8 stress relieving techniques that are helpful immediately, that people find really helpful. And I run a meditation group on a daily basis, live on Zoom every morning. I've been doing it well over 400 days. I have people that help me now because it is a huge undertaking. And my blog is has every one of those meditations and reflections from participants. And we're international now. We have participants from Canada joining us, as well as most of the Midwest and East Coast. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. And my wisdom with Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway comes through everything because it helps me with everything in my life. And I wrote a book of how to survive as a caregiver when one is dealing with taking care of their loved ones, and that's on my website as well. And that helps a lot of people because caregiving can come in any time of your life with a loved one. So thank you for asking.
Oh, thank you for sharing.
And people are welcome to email me. My email is on my website, and ask me a question. I welcome that all the time.
You're such a wonderful person.
Oh, thank you. Well, you are too.
Oh, thank you.
With the work you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Well, it has been an absolute honor to
Oh,
interview you again.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I would just stop